In some world that isn't illogical, and I said that
Wait,
obviously in an illogical what?
When you're talking about a world that is referring to a possible world, impossibilities
Well,
is
but
what you
right now we're not arguing about
hold on.
but right
You're
now that's not what we're
presupposing
talking about. I
you're
literally said
presupposing it's a
okay,
possible
but
world in the
Infinity,
first
let
place.
me finish what I'm saying. Let me finish what I'm saying. Right? I literally said we can talk about right after whether or not this is possible. We can talk about whether it's possible after.
Yeah, yes, I want
But
to talk
what
about
we're
that
talking
now.
about right now, because hold on, the only
wait,
reason that would even be
I only
relevant.
went
Hold
under
on.
the hypothetical.
Hold on.
I said, girl, why you keep calling? I said, girl, why you keep calling? Yeah. She said, I need a new whip. Yeah, cause I know that you're still ballin'. 21 minutes until I gotta go, so I told that girl I'm gonna slaughter it.
Thing is like a concept of an apple or a thought of an apple.
The thought, right? If you die, the thought of the apple. Like, if you die while thinking of an apple, that thought is gone.
No, that thought within your head is gone. Not the thought itself. You're presupposing that thoughts are in the head.
Thought, right? But when you say the thought itself, there, what you're talking about is the concept of an apple, right? The potential to identify with an apple. You can still do it, but you actually doing it, right? You actually thinking about it, that is gone once you die.
I agree you can discover it. However, I don't believe that something aspatial can fit in space. So I believe it's in a quote unquote other realm, as in it shares with abstract beings. So when you talk about identification, obviously we identify physical things off of abstract things. However, under my view, obviously abstract things are the same as thoughts and they exist in the same quote unquote realm.
I mean, yeah, I think thoughts exist in the same realm as similar to how time exists in the same realm as physical things and gravity exists in the same realm as physical things. I think they're all just physical phenomena.
No, I said that abstract and non-physical thoughts exist in the same realm outside of physicality.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I'm saying, how can something aspatial or non-physical, in other words, exist within your head, which is confined with space?
How can something that is aspatial exist within your head? I don't understand what you're trying to say. We just know that it does. It's not a matter of me proving it. We just know that it does.
No. You said that they're mental constructs. Also, you're presupposing that we know that they do. I can just give another interpretation, which I truly believe in, and say they exist externally in another realm, and we discover these concepts instead of them being mental constructs.
Wait, but I'm talking about thoughts, not concepts,
yes,
right?
Me too.
We know our thoughts exist within us, or in
we know
sense.
Go ahead.
Right, we know in some sense they exist as a part of us.
No, I agree that we can discover them existing in a different realm. However, you saying that we know they exist within our mental construct is something that you're presupposing. Obviously, you
discover what? What are you talking about?
I believe that we discover these thoughts. Yeah, I don't believe we can create abstract thing or quote unquote non-physical.
We discover thoughts. Okay, let's
yes.
really hold on. Let's really be rigid with our language here, right? When I say thought, I'm referring to something different from a concept. So when I say thought of an apple, right? When I say the thought of an apple, I'm talking about the literal thinking of an apple. Someone thinking of an apple. So when
the thinking process is distinct from the thought itself, though.
The thinking is distinct from the thought. No, I'm not differentiating from that. I think those go hand in hand, right? Because I'm saying
that goes back to the
I'm saying as soon as we differentiate it, right, from the thinking process, as soon as we say is not contingent upon the thinking process, then it's not a thought, it's a concept, right? Because if it is differentiated from that thinking process, then if everyone were to die right now, did I cut out?
Just go ahead.
Right. So I'm saying as soon as we differentiate the thought from the thinking process, right, and say that it can exist independent of the thinking process, then it's a concept, right? Because there are thoughts, right? The actual thinking of something. When we say we thought of something or we're thinking of something or whatnot, right? Then if everyone were to die, that thinking of something, that thought of something is gone. But the concept of that thing, which would be the thought as it exists independent of the thinking process, right? That concept would still be existent.
You keep on saying if we distinguish the two. However, I'm asking you why we should distinguish the two, especially if it's non-physical, which would entail is not able to go and witness physical change. If that follows, and if you accept that time is biconditionally represented by Anyways, time is biconditionally represented by physical or spatial action that would entail that these things cannot come into existence, but instead they are eternal in the sense where they exist outside of time. They exist at all quote unquote points in time. So you cannot say there's a thinking process and then a non-physical entity comes from that thinking process, because that entails that it was born into existence, which cannot happen if you are atemporal, aspatial. So what's the argument as to why we should distinguish a concept and a thought?
Yeah.
When you say that we forget of a thought when we die, that's just a presupposition instead of us going into
Right.
reality, experiencing physical things, and then discovering that physical thing having a conceptual representation, or the, quote unquote, that thought being a conceptual representation of that physical thing, and then we come and ground or we understand it.
Right. So there's two things. There are just two facts that are undisputable, right? The fact that we can think of something, and the fact that there are things that are thought of, right? Those are two facts. So, for instance, we can be, let's say, running or something, and we're thinking about our form, right? We're thinking about our form as we're running. Once we stop thinking about our form or whatever, blah, 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 right? The actual notion of a form, a running form, that actual notion, that doesn't disappear, right? That's still just a notion, right? We don't have to think about the notion of a form, right, for there to be a notion of a form. But when I say thought, right, not a thought, when I talk about thought in general, thought is referring to the action of thinking of something, right? That's what thought is referring to. And this action can't be completed by non-physical things, right? So if the physical things were to die, that being humans, right, thought itself would not be there, right? Because thought is the thinking of something.
Yeah, so I'm talking about what comes from the thinking of something. I agree that we do have a thought process, as in we discover these concepts and then we use that understanding to maybe in some instances influence our physical phenomenon. However, by the way, just to clarity, I'm not saying you said this, but just for clarity, you can do things without conceiving of the action or anything like that, or thinking of the action. But anyways, to move on, yes, I believe that you can.
Yo, did I cut out or I'm tripping?
No, I think it was
No,
His
his mom called him.
Oh, yo, Midnight, did you see what I said, bro?
No.
Oh, I said in the chat. I did
Yeah,
a
my bad,
test.
I'm back. Yeah,
Come
so
on,
you
man.
have concepts that are, so under my view, you have concepts that are identical with thoughts. And then when we get into reality, we experience physical phenomenon. Off of that experience, we can now discover within our mental constructs that this thought exists, quote unquote, exists. However, it exists at all points in quote unquote time, not actually, but that's just connotated for the understanding. So it exists at all points in time. We discover it. And then based upon that understanding, we can continue accurately doing that physical phenomenon. Go ahead.
Right. So I still think we're saying like as a consequence of thinking, as a consequence of thought, right? That was fast as fuck. Fucking ooh. Right. You're saying that as a consequence of thinking, right, this thought arises, right? And this thought will exist at all points in time, being aspatial, atemporal, whatever, blah, 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 blah. But I'm saying that that thing which you're referring to is a concept, right? And what we're trying to define here is physical things, right? Physical things are things that can impact physicality, which are non-physical, right? So as I have described the physical phenomenon, and I would say that thought, right? So the action of thinking is a non-physical action, right? That is a non-physical action, and I'm saying that that thought can arise physical consequences. And I'm saying that the actual concept of it, right? The concepts that arise due to thought, right? These are also non-physical things that I don't necessarily think they're atemporal, but let's just say they are. They're non-physical things which don't impact physicality and therefore concepts. But we can't deny that it is just definitely a fact that thought impacts physicality.
Yeah, no, it's one, thought can impact physicality, not that it does. And then secondly, I'm saying why, or I'm asking why we should accept your worldview, especially if seemingly there's a contradiction. So epistemically speaking, I believe there's a contradiction due to time being changed and change not occurring if something is atemporal or something being aspatial, because aspatial means a non-physical entity within its context. If they're non-physical, under my view, that means they cannot go through physical change, which is obviously true. If that follows, then you can say if they cannot go through physical change, that cannot go through change at all, because change is represented by conditionally. So when you talk about a thought process, which is, for example, you think of the concept of running, and therefore off of that conceptualization, you start performing the physical action of running, and then you erase that thought process and instead start walking. I'm saying that you cannot bring it into existence because it is atemporal. If you bring it into existence, there's a point in time where it doesn't exist, and there's a point in time where it does exist. Therefore, it would go through some type of temporality. With these hybrid points, I believe that's a contradiction.
Wait, is it that you think is atemporal?
You said, yeah. I said that time is change. Change is represented by conditionally through spatial interaction or spatial action. Therefore, if a thought is non-physical, in translation, it would be aspatial and atemporal in virtue of that.
A few issues. So I disagree with your definition of time. I feel like it's very construed towards your point. Time being change. I think change happens through time, but I don't think denotatively that change requires time, right? If I were to tell you that, what's it called? Let's say like there was a cube or something that was 1 cubic centimeter, and that same cube was then 2 cubic centimeters or something, right? And I were to say this happens in a world that has no time, a change still occurs, right? This isn't something that would possibly occur, but the denotation of change doesn't require time, right? It's just, that's just how we logically understand change as beings that are bounded by time, right? Change usually happens through time. And then the second thing, the argument of there being some sort of contradiction, there doesn't have to be, right? Because I'm not saying that these thoughts exist non-physically, or like atemporally, and then they have physical manifestations, right? All I'm saying is that they are in some sense physical, right? So there's no change required, right? They are in some sense physical already. That's why I refer to them as physical phenomena, not completely non-physical.
Yeah, so when you're talking about denotations, you said denotatively you don't believe that time is directly correlative and connected to change. However, if we look at Oxford Dictionary, it literally draws a correlation that is apparent there. So I'll repeat the definition that they gave. It says the indefinite continued progression of existence and events in the past, present, and future. So I'm asking you, how can you have a progression without change? Because change is just by definition alteration. You saying that there's a possible world where there can be change, however, not time, you're presupposing your worldview, which is is true,
I'm
which is
not
that
saying
change is separate from time. Wait, hold on.
What,
And in
you
response
just
to the
said.
other thing, hold on, Saucy, hold on. In response to the other thing, you said that there doesn't have to be a contradiction. Under my worldview, there doesn't. However, under your worldview, it does, because you're saying that there's a thought process, and out of that thought process arises concepts in a way, and not which is discovered, but instead in a way in which they're conceptualized or conceptually created. I'm saying that if it is atemporal, but you're not making a claim that it is. I just gave an argument as to why it is. But if it's atemporal, that means there cannot be a point in quote unquote time where it doesn't exist. It does exist, and then it doesn't exist any longer once you, for example, forget about it or die. Therefore, it would follow that if these points exist, it would have to be temporal by definition, because there's change. It goes from 1 to 3. 1, non-existence. 2, existence. 2, non-existence again.
Yeah, so again, a few issues. So the first part, right, what you argue doesn't actually prove that there has to be time for there to be change, right? What you argue is that there will be change through time, right? That if time exists, there will be change, because time, by definition, right, leads to change. But what your argument, or what your conclusion was, is that in a world with no time, right, change can't occur, right? So if change occurs, that means that time exists or whatnot. But what I was saying is that change doesn't entail time necessarily. Change usually happens through time, right, as our understanding of change. But denotatively, right, it doesn't necessitate that time exists for change to happen, right? So again, for like the scenario of like a world with no time, but in some way, right, we know that it's not logical from what we understand, but at one at one point this fucking like cube or something is 1 cubic centimeter, and then it's the same cube is 2 cubic centimeters or something, right? That's a change, right? We can, if we assume this world didn't have time, that wouldn't contradict there being a change, right? It would just mean that it happens, like, I don't know, some...
Saucy, you said you started off your scenario with it not being logical from what we understand. However, one, you're presupposing that we have an understanding of time being separated from change. And then secondly, did I not start this conversation off, or at least my
I am agreeing.
Hold on. My monologue in this conversation by saying I'm referring to an epistemic modoscope. It is epistemically contradictory. I did not say logically speaking. Anyways, so whenever talking about time and change, I said they were identical to each other, not that they have a correlation. I said under my worldview, which we're investigating currently, your worldview, they are identical. So if that follows, how can your worldview be the case if they are identical? You giving a possible world is presupposing that it is possible in the first place. So I'm asking you, what is the argument as to why you cannot change without time if under my worldview, especially they are identical with each other? What, Center? Would you pay me?
You said what?
Yeah. Where'd you ping me? I don't see it. I just seen the ping.
Kick. Yo, Saucy, you still here?
Hello?
I don't think he's here. If he doesn't come back in like 2 minutes, something probably.
This nigga died.
Nigga, answer the question and took.
Huh? Yeah, I got you.
All right, I'm back.
Uh,
What's happening?
Go ahead.
Right. Where I left off. Okay, so the argument about change and whether or not we logically understand change and time to be intertwined, I think we do. I think that's how we understand it, right? And I think that's logically how it functions. But I'm saying that change by definition does not require time, right? Denotatively, change is something that could occur, not logically, but possibly could occur without
Under
time.
what
It would
modal
have to happen. What's that?
When you said it was not logically but possible, under what modoscope? If it isn't a logical modoscope.
I'm simply saying that by the denotation of what change is, right? Change would just be that an object, let's say an object is this, it's whatever it is, and then it becomes something else, right? Now, to become something else or to change requires time in our universe, right? But simply going from one thing into becoming something else, right? That occurring denotatively does not require time necessarily. That could happen in a timeless world.
Yeah, you said could. That's a modal claim. I'm asking you, or a modal term. I'm asking you under what modal scope could that happen under? And then I want you to justify that that's actually possible under that modal scope. And then secondly, I'm asking you, my bad. I'm asking you, what denotation do you believe you're referring to? Because I just put up Oxford denotation, and it literally is directly connected to change. By the way, you saying that they're intertwined? I'm not saying that they're intertwined.
Time, I agree. Time is connected.
Wait,
I'm
no,
saying
no,
the
no. I'm saying
other,
that I'm
the
not.
vice
I'm
versa.
saying they're connected. I'm saying they're connected in a sense where they're identical. There's no separation between the two. You're saying that they're correlated. They're intertwined. That's distinct. A is not the same as A is correlated to B.
Sorry. Let me. Absolutely not. Well, read the definition again. I don't think they were saying it's basically the same thing.
Yeah, it said, nigga. It literally says the indefinite continued progression. Progression. That's the definition of time. Progression is change. It doesn't matter if it's progressing backwards, presently, or.
Okay, right. The indefinite continued progress of existence and events
Yes,
in the
continue
past, present, and future regarded as a whole. Right.
Yep.
So what time would be, right? What time would be, by definition, would be just some sort of progression of events, some measured progression of events through past,
Wait, not
present,
measured,
and future.
not measured. It doesn't say measured.
It's measured through past, present, and future.
Oh yeah, sure. That's what you mean. Yeah.
Right. And I'm saying without a past, present, and future, on some illogical level, right, you can have change without time.
I think you're using these words vaguely. What do you mean illogical if you're not referring to a logical modal school?
Right. I'm simply saying via the denotation, right? If we had some hypothetical universe, right, where we have let's say a cube or whatever.
Means it's a possible scenario. I'm asking you, why is it possible? You're just going off of a denotation.
Why is it possible? Right, because I feel like I don't think because it's illogical. What's up?
Yeah, I'm saying that the denotation you're using is obviously going to be from a consensus, which is a normative consensus, which most of those people are retarded.
A normative? No. I'm simply. I think it's logically possible for what I'm saying to be true.
You said it was illogical, though.
Right. No, I think it's illogical using our logic. But I don't think our logic says that illogical things are impossible to exist in an illogical place. That's not a contradiction.
Illogical. Wait, yes,
no.
Literally.
Okay.
Logicality
So let me ask you a question. Right? Let me ask you a question.
Hold on. Illogicality is referring to what's impossible in perspective of a logical modal school. That is our logic. Exactly. That's the logic that we use.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Hold on, because I can solve this. I can solve this very quickly. Is something illogical happening in an illogical universe? Is that logical or illogical?
And it depends on what you mean by universe. If you mean by universe a possible world, then that cannot occur. Possible worlds cannot have impossibilities within it. That defeats the purpose. That's analytically contradictory, my nigga.
A possible world, right? Due to what? Due to what scope?
Yes,
You're talking about logic. But what I'm saying, I'm saying a world that is illogical, right? Let's say a world exists. The world is illogical.
Why would I posit that? That
illogical
can't exist,
happen. No, I'm asking you whether or not this hypothetical is illogical. Let me, bro. Okay, just interact. Just interact with the hypothetical, right? You can let me finish. You can let me finish saying it, and then you can interact with it.
So one, I'm not positing that illogical.
Hold on. Okay, bro. Just let me finish what I'm saying.
Real quick.
You cut me off to say that though.
I know. I'm just.
I didn't.
I don't think it's gonna matter, bro, because I think they just keep arguing about this. Infinity doesn't want to do that in first place. He doesn't think that it's even he can't even think about it.
I'm about to answer under a hypothetical. Under a hypothetical where there's an illogical world. Obviously, there's an illogical situation that's tautological. If it's illogical, it's illogical. If it's not logical, then it isn't logical. What?
Nigga, all I'm asking you, we can talk about whether or not this world can possibly exist after. All I'm asking you is if let's say an illogical thing doing something illogical, or an illogical place having something illogical within it, if that itself is contradictory, is that illogical?
Did I not just answer this? What the fuck?
No, you didn't.
I literally just did, but I'll answer again. I said something illogical is illogical. Therefore, if there's an illogical possible world, there's an illogical possible world.
Just, bro, I didn't need all that. Just say, is it logical or not?
I just answered that 3 times.
You can just keep it simple. Is it logical?
If it's illogical, it's illogical. That's the most simple shit. If it's illogical, it's illogical.
Logical.
Okay, so it is illogical.
Yes, I've said that 3 or 4 times.
Okay, so I don't know why that was so difficult.
You're the only one who made it difficult.
Can you demonstrate to me? The illogical? Hold on, let me write up the statement. So
wait, now you're trying to burden shit.
And let's say what?
Yeah, I'll explain why. So the reason why you're burden shifting is because initially I placed the burden upon you to explain where there's a possible scenario where change is not going to be back initially there if there's time and vice versa. You're presupposing your worldview, which includes that time and change are intertwined, however, that they're not connected directly, as in they're directly identical with each other. When you appeal to this denotation, hold on. When you appeal to this denotation, it's just based upon a common consensus, which obviously holds a belief that can be wrong. The same as philosophers might agree with each other, but their belief that they agree on also can be incorrect.
Okay, that's not true, right? Because this can't be burden shifting because I did support what I was saying, and I after what?
How?
Right. So my argument initially was that simply I think that it can happen in some world that isn't illogical, and I said that obviously in an illogical what?
When you're talking about a world that is referring to a possible world, impossibilities is what
right now we're not arguing about. Yeah, but right now that's not what we're talking about. I literally said, okay, but Infinity, let me finish what I'm saying. Right? I literally said we can talk about right after whether or not this is possible. We can talk about whether it's possible after.
Yes, I want to talk about
we're
that
talking
now.
about right now because hold on. The only reason that would even be relevant. Hold on, bro. Infinity, let me finish, bro.
I'm clarifying something now.
The only reason that question would even be relevant would be that even if it was possible, would it even be logical, right? So the only reason the question, because that's what we're arguing about. We're arguing about whether or not it would be logical for an illogical world to hold something illogical.
No, you weren't listening. What I said at the start of the conversation twice, by the way, I repeated it. I said this at the start of the conversation, was that I deem it to be epistemically impossible due to my current knowledge on what's logically possible and impossible. I'm not asserting.
Sure, and we can talk about that after. And I said we can talk about that after.
Hold on. Yes, after the question, I said I was only going under the hypothetical of the question. I was not going to continue that dialogue.
No, but this is the issue, right? The issue is that question is only relevant if the world itself would be logical, right? Hypothetically, right?
No,
hold on, let me finish what I'm saying. If we were to grant that it was logical, then the question of whether or not it's even possible in the first place would matter. But why would we argue about whether or not it's possible in the first place if we don't even know if it's logical or not? That makes no sense because the entire argument is surrounding whether or not it would be logical or illogical. Why would we talk about whether it's possible first?
Okay, thank you. I'll answer the question. So maybe you weren't listening. I brought up multiple fucking modal scopes. It doesn't just have to be logically the case or logically possible. That's why I referenced it as a modal term. It can be modally possible under multiple modal scopes, my nigga. So when you're talking about logic, that can be distinct from something like epistemology or what's nominally. Anyways, hold on. So the question was, if something is illogical, is it illogical? That's just a paraphrase of the question.
No, that was not the question.
Hold on, stop cutting me off. Yes, if something is illogical, it's illogical. That's all I answered. We can go back to what we were talking about prior. I was just giving you charity and answering that retarded question.
That was not the question. Okay, I'll repeat the question.
I just said I was paraphrasing it. I never said it was the question verbatim.
I'll repeat the question.
I can tell you the question. The question was, if there's an illogical world, can something illogical happen in our world, or is the world illogical? That was the question. And if you're trying to lie and say that it wasn't the question,
no, that's not the question, right? The question was, right? As a logical being, using a logical lens, right? Would you say it is illogical for an illogical world to have something illogical happen within it, right? So not from some other perspective, because we're talking about from the perspective of logic, right? From the perspective of logic, right? If you were to, come to know some illogical world exists, and you were then to come to know illogical things happen within this illogical world, would that in itself be illogical? Would something illogical stemming from something illogical be illogical?
Yeah, not either one. It was just your poor articulation, or two, you just completely changed the question. I'll answer that new question.
That was literally the question the whole time.
One, of course you think that, of course. But anyways, so yes, in my opinion, there can be a logical situation in an illogical world. However, how we determine whether or not that situation is logical is going to be distinct.
But I'm talking about from the lens of logic, from the lens of our three laws of thought, from the lens of our logic. Would it make sense? Would it make sense for a world, let's say a world that can have
you're not understanding, Tyler,
would it make logical sense? Would it be logically valid, right, for a world that can have contradictions to have a contradiction? Would that be logically valid?
Okay, so that was the question. I was right. Anyways, so yeah, so if we're talking about an Aristotelian viewpoint of the laws of thought, then it would follow that if there's a single particular in which is contradictory, then all the laws of logic are false in every scenario because they are universal affirmatives. Therefore,
But that's not what
you
we're
cannot
talking
determine.
about.
Hold on. Therefore, a logical modal scope does not exist if there's even one A which is not identical
That
with
is
itself.
completely not relevant.
It is. I just answered your question. There's no such thing. There's no such thing.
Not. Hold on. Let me finish. I just let you finish. I just let you finish what you were saying. I just let you finish what you were saying. I just let you finish what you were saying, bro. I just let you finish what you were saying.
Hello? There's no such thing as a logical lens.
You can logically shut the fuck up.
Bro, can y'all niggas go back to being cordial, please? I don't have to moderate type shit. All right, thank you.
Center, be quiet.
The view is Zesty.
Okay.
I'm about to come.
I need the bitch Ice real quick, but let me speak real quick. Hey, Ice, I ain't gonna lie. Shut your ugly ass.
Shut your bitch ass up first. Shut the fuck out your dirty ass. You thought you was for the
Your name is Cardi here, my
on your
nigga.
dirty
Tell me
ass.
why you
fat
lost the
ass.
fucking fat off competition that nigga packed, you ugly ass nigga.
Shut your big ass up, you dirty
You look
ass
like a
bitch.
Dorito from
You was the best. You the best eater in every food competition. Shut your bitch ass up. You was notorious in the lunchroom. You built like a lunchroom table. Shut your bitch ass up. You smack your belly before you eat. Shut your bitch ass up, you dirty ass nigga. You ugly shit. You pound on the table for food. They play you a theme song.
Chill. Dumbass nigga thought I was there. You must be looking ass nigga. Fuck is you talking about?
Shut your bitch ass up. You have a theme song in the lunchroom, stupid ass nigga.
So to go out.
Right. I don't disagree that the world would have no logic, right? There would be no logical scope within that world because I'm saying it's an illogical world, right? I'm saying the three laws of thought. I'm saying that the laws of non-contradiction, all these things, I'm saying they don't exist in that world, right? Or don't apply to that world in the same way they would obviously apply to a logical world like ours. But what I'm saying is, if you were within your universe, right, within your logic, right, within our logic, using our three laws of thought, right, using our logic as a lens, and we were to look at that world, and we were to have two stipulated facts. It is an illogical world, and an illogical thing happened within the world. Would that, via our three laws of thought, be illogical through the lens of logic?
I'll answer the question after I clarify this misconception. You keep on saying our logic as in there's different perspective logics. No, the laws of logic, if we're going by Aristotelian's account, is something that is descriptive. So it's supposed to be a set of all possible worlds. That's what a modal scope is referring to. It's a lens in which we view something being impossible and possible under a determinator. So if we're talking about a logical modal scope, it includes all these sets of possible worlds. Something impossible cannot have a world. Shut up. Something impossible cannot have a world. Therefore, if there's an illogical situation, which is a particular that denies the universal claim that nothing is not identical with itself. Everything.
But modal possibility is just retarded.
Hold on. So when you say our logic, or we know that's referring to an epistemic impossibility, which is the thing I introduced at the start of this conversation, Saucy. So this question I already
but infinity. You understand that modal possibility is just inherently flawed, right? Like saying that
flawed in what way?
Okay, hold on. Representing possibility in the terms of possible worlds. I'm sure you're aware that that's just inherently flawed. There's so many inherently flawed lines of reasoning that arise due to treating possibilities in the sense of possible worlds.
Okay, wait. I can agree with you if you clarify what sense you're talking about. It depends on what sense you're talking about. Flawed in what way?
Right. Okay. So when we represent possibility in the sense of possible worlds, then we have arguments like what was it? The modal ontological argument for God, right? Or modal ontological arguments for things like necessary beings and all these things.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I feel like using possibility in that sense is just inherently flawed.
Yeah, I just disagree because I believe that isn't a possible in the first place. Something that is instantiated by the modal ontological argument is just impossible because if you were to reverse it, it would entail the contrary. Therefore, its complement would just entail a contradiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that that's an impossibility. Therefore, there's no possible world where it's necessarily possible or it's possibly necessary. So the modal ontological argument does not defeat modal possibilities, but instead it just entails a contradiction in which there would not be an impossible world because impossible worlds don't exist.
Wait, no, but the issue is that there would be no logical contradiction. It would be a modal contradiction, right? The contradiction would not arise due to logic. The contradiction would not arise due to logic.
A modal contradiction is referring to a modal scope in which there's multiple various types of modal scopes. It would be a logical contradiction because if there's a reversal to the modal ontological argument, that means the complement quote unquote hypothetically can also be possibly necessary. However, if they're both hypothetically possibly necessary, what does that mean? That would instantiate a contradiction, which is not possible. Therefore, there's no such thing as a possible necessity. That's impossible.
But it's the only reason it isn't possible is because of the modal understanding of possibility, because of the possibility being represented as a possible world. That is the only reason it is impossible.
No.
If we use possibility and impossibility, right, without using modal possibility, then the argument works perfectly.
No, the argument does not work either way. If you say something is possibly necessary, even without possible worlds existing, which is impossible, by the way, you can't use possibilities without representing possible worlds. But even if we were to do the same thing without possible worlds, it would still be contradictory. You brought the modal ontological argument up as a response to us using possible worlds to represent possibilities to represent possible worlds. However, I'm saying the modal ontological argument is non sequitur in response to debunking modal logic. There's no response to that.
Wait, no, but okay. I want you to prove something to me, right? Because you just said it isn't arise due to modal, the sort of possibility represented as like possible worlds and impossible worlds, whatnot. So could you demonstrate to me why the ontological argument would be illogical, or just the idea of a possibly necessary being would be illogical outside of the possible world, impossible world theory?
I can if you debunk my current argument. I don't see the relevance if we don't move from this modal point.
What? But the argument, the argument is that this arises due to how we treat modal possibility. And you're saying,
why it doesn't arise.
No, hold on. And you're saying, well, it doesn't arise due to modal possibility. It's just illogical in and of itself, saying something is possibly necessary. And I'm asking you to demonstrate that. How is that relevant?
Yeah, so the argument, I already demonstrated it, but the argument for a third time is going to be, if you can reverse the possible necessity, that means that there's a contradiction that can be potentially inferred. If that follows, that means contradictions cannot exist in any possible world. Therefore, the claim about it being possibly necessary is wrong because it is not possible to be necessary, and the complement is also possible to be necessary in the first place. So I just demonstrated how the modal ontological argument instantiates a contradiction, meaning that what you're saying currently does not follow. And for the second burden, I'm saying that burden is irrelevant if we don't go past this point, or if we.
This doesn't prove what I asked, though, right? Because I asked for you to hold on. I asked you to prove it external to using modal possibility, external to using possibility represented as possible and impossible worlds. But in your reasoning, you use possible and impossible worlds.
Wait, yeah, I'm asking you. Can you tell me my response to that? Because I already responded to that about 2 to 3 times. What did I say?
You didn't. Each time you did respond to it,
can you tell me what I said?
To it. You just said, right, that something being possibly necessary or whatnot, right? Because of it being what?
Yeah, that was said in response to me justifying the first burden. I said the second burden is irrelevant when it comes to justification for it if we don't move past this point.
But that's literally what I just asked you, and I'm saying you keep regurgitating the same relevant to me. Right? But my whole issue is that you're not responding to the question. I'm saying you have to.
Yeah, I know I'm not. Why do I have to? What the fuck?
Right.
If I just told
you, I told you why you have to.
I'm not done.
I can tell you why you have to.
Chill. If there's 2 points and the second point is irrelevant, if I justify or explain why I won the first point, we don't need to hold on. That we don't need to move on to the second point. You said the modal ontological argument. Hold on, stop cutting me off, Center. You can moderate now. You pointed out the modal ontological argument as a demonstration for why we cannot use modal logic. Why there's a flaw in using possible worlds to represent possibilities to represent possible worlds. I just told you there is no flaw in it by virtue of X, Y, and Z, meaning your argument currently does not stand. If that follows, that means there's no reason to move on to the second burden, because that burden is only relevant if and only if I lose the first point.
Right. So again, that first point. After you gave that first point, I responded by saying, well, right, you're saying it doesn't work when you use modal possibilities because it would be illogical, right? And I'm saying the reason it doesn't work is not because it's illogical, right? It's because you're using modal possibilities.
But
and you're saying, what's the argument? Right, hold on. And I substantiated that claim by saying if we use that same line of reasoning, but not modal possibilities, right? Possible worlds and impossible worlds. Could you demonstrate that it's like illogical outside of that, right? And I've been saying no this whole time. And each time, right? And each time you respond by using the modal possible worlds or whatever to prove it's illogical. And I'm saying you can't do that without that.
No, brother. Oh my God. every response that I have given is not in response to that burden. I just explained why I don't need to respond to that
I
burden.
know
So
it's
what does
not
that
a
mean? Hold on,
response.
stop cutting me off. Meaning, you just said I responded with the same weight to that burden. However, I didn't respond to the burden at all. Anyways, to continue, even if I were to posit that possible worlds do not exist and shouldn't be represented using possibilities, you understand that modal logic does not just deal with possible worlds. It deals with
But
possibilities
I'm
overall.
talking about
Even
modal
if you interpret,
possibility.
you said modal possibilities. I'm saying modal possibilities do not only represent possible worlds. That is just a specific worldview that people have. Anyways, like I said, just because there's a lack of demonstration hypothetically doesn't mean that your point is true. So even if I fail to demonstrate why under your view there's a contradiction there, doesn't mean that it's true or anything or that we should accept it. But instead, you're burden shifting. I already placed a burden onto you to justify why under your view it wouldn't be contradictory. And like I said, even if we were to dismiss this point overall, I already explained why under the first view, which is the one I take, it would not entail a flaw in modal possibilities, quote unquote.
Okay.
So can we move on?
Again, right? You're just regurgitating the same thing. So
okay, let's move on then.
For the argument that there's some burden on me to prove that there's no contradiction, blah blah blah. No, I don't have to prove that, right? The proof in and of itself is just that there is no contradiction.
Yeah,
right? There is no contradiction.
That. What's the argument?
Okay, no, it's just proof via non-contradiction. There is no demonstration.
You're using no. Okay, so basically, in low tier terms, it's proof because you have no argument for the contrary. So no, that isn't a valid way of representing the truthfulness of your point.
Because we're talking about possibilities.
I want you to explain why you don't.
All right, let me ask you something. Let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
How do we derive something as being possible?
It depends. If there's no contradiction under the modal scope that you're referring to.
Okay, so if there is no contradiction, something is possible. I'm trying to prove something is possible. So if I say there is no contradiction, therefore it is possible, how is that low tier?
Because you have to explain why there's no contradiction. You simply saying that there's no contradiction.
How do you explain?
Hold on, stop cutting me off. Stop cutting me off. Stop cutting me off. Stop cutting me off. I let you finish. I let you finish. Anyways, so once again, me personally, as in mentally constructing that there's no contradiction, therefore accepting that something is possible, is not the same thing as me in an argumentative bout explaining why there's no contradiction, and then therefore increasing the reason as to why you should accept that it's possible. Those are two different things, Saucy. So can we continue? I think we are going circular.
Right. So I think that what you're doing is just fallacious, right? You're telling me to prove that something isn't a contradiction, prove that something doesn't have a contradiction, which I think in and of itself, right?
In other words,
prove that something by the fact that there is. What's that?
Yes. In other words, prove that it's possible. Yes. What's your point?
Right. Okay. So let me ask you: how do you prove something has no contradiction?
Prove or explain, two different things. Which one?
Prove, because you're asking me to prove. I would like you to prove to me. No, hold on. Prove to me that 1 + 1 = 2 does not have a contradiction.
Yeah, sure, I got you. The reason why, no, proving that it's possible and proving that it is the case are two different things, but I'll justify both. So one, mathematically
speaking, I'm not just saying prove it doesn't have a contradiction.
No. Under a mathematical modal scope, we use language as in the utterance of math to represent entities IRL. So if you have entity infinity and entity malevolent, that entails two entities, but by our utterance or what we mean by two. However, if you use the word 3, if you mean the word 4, under the letter, the number, what the fuck, I'm retarded. If you use the number 2, 3, 4, 5, etc., it doesn't matter what that number actually means as long as you interpret it to mean that it has two entities within actuality. So entity infinity, entity king Maki, that's a group of entities. That's two entities. That's more than one entity. So yes, there's no contradiction in that, and that is the case. That's how we use mathematics to represent reality.
That was not a demonstration of not being a contradiction.
I just told you I was going to prove it is the case. Not that it is.
No, but what I'm asking you to prove is that there is no contradiction.
Oh, okay, yeah. You can change the burden now. The initial burden was to prove.
I literally repeated it. I repeated it, and you were like, "Oh, no. Let me talk." I repeated it for you because I knew you misunderstood.
Because I was going to justify the first burden. Then you want another burden. You can place it up.
No, from the beginning, I asked you to prove there is no contradiction. That's what I asked you.
What you told me to do was prove 1 + 1 = 2. If you can't track that,
I said,
but that's fine. I'll justify
1 + 1
=
2. Wait, that's doesn't have a contradiction. That's what I asked you.
I'll justify the new burden. So
prove it doesn't have a contradiction.
Under what modal scope?
Whatever, just logical, right? Just prove it doesn't have a contradiction.
Yeah. So I got you. So 1 + 1 = 2. 1 is identical with itself. 2 is either true or false, and 3 has no middle ground. Therefore, either true or false.
Sorry, repeat that.
It's identical with itself. It's either true or false, and it has no middle ground. Therefore, it's either true or false.
Yeah, but you're just making claims. I'm asking you to demonstrate.
Yeah, I got you.
Right, because I can make the claim there is no contradiction. So, for instance, I could do exactly what you just did to prove the earlier thing about it not being contradictory.
I mean, you can utter it. Yeah, what's your point? You can utter it.
Right.
Yeah,
so
let me respond to the burden.
I can utter what you just uttered.
I wasn't done.
I'm asking you for a demonstration.
Before I get into that, there was another burden. Yeah, so you said that doesn't prove that it's actually possible. Yes, if there's one, if there's proposition P, which within this example will be set of properties 2, then you can say since each property is identical with itself, that would instantiate that 2 or P, whatever you're talking about, is identical with itself analytically. However, that is a verification there, meaning you can use that to say it has correspondence with the 3 laws of thought. If you don't accept that epistemically, sure, I don't care about your acceptance. All I'm doing is giving an analogy where we can verify that the set of properties are identical.
Can you repeat?
Yes, I said how we verify something being identical with itself. Like, for example, A equal A is by virtue of the set of properties that it has. If you don't accept that epistemically, I don't care because I'm not referring to your acceptance. I'm just giving your analogy on how my method of what a contradiction is achieved. You asked for my method, how we determine something being contradictory.
I'm saying that, right. I'm saying that your method is not at all different from you simply saying it is a contradiction.
Yeah, how? I just demonstrated that it's identical with itself within the analogy.
Okay. I can demonstrate that exact same thing by uttering it.
Yeah, perfect. That's where I'm going to go into your point. I'm going to explain why you can't do that.
Okay. Go for it.
So, okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you say that, if you utter the words and say it isn't contradictory, your words are describing a phenomenon in reality, hypothetically. However, I'm saying epistemically, it might seem as if it is.
Repeat that shit.
Yes. Words are supposed to describe things within reality. Yes. So if you're saying and you give an utterance on why it isn't contradictory, sure. Epistemically, it might not seem as if it's contradictory. However, due to our epistemic access, we might have limitations for it to actually be deemed as contradictory, logically speaking.
Wait, so essentially what you just said is, I don't know whether you're wrong, but you might be wrong because I don't know.
Yep. Perfect.
I can say the exact same thing. What? I'm so confused.
What's your point, bro?
I can repeat exactly what you just said in reference to how you proved something was possible.
Okay.
Buddy, do you not see how that's contradictory?
I see how you believe it's contradictory, but obviously someone
my god. These are empty claims. You're just saying stuff just to say stuff. Right? If your critique of my position also applies to your position, it can't be a valid critique. It can't be a valid critique if it also applies to your position.
Hold on. Your response to my claim or argument was you saying you can apply the argument back. I have no problem with that. However, whether or not you accept it is distinct. If I were to give my worldview and you accept it, that is something established. However, if you give your worldview and you accept it, that is not something that's established because I might not accept it. That's just your own acceptance.
Okay. Hold on. Then all you're saying is this is literally what your response to what I'm saying is. That's cool, but I believe something else. That's literally your response.
Let me finish. So if there's any proposition P under my worldview, if we both establish that, which we have, you have now just brought up this point, that means that it is something we should accept or we have accepted. However, for your worldview,
no, I never said that. I never said we have to accept this. I never said we have to accept this.
Shut up. I'm not saying you have to.
I never said that we have to accept my position. I never said that, right? The issue that I have with what you're
I don't know why I was muted, but anyways. Yeah, so one, I was just referring to how epistemically you could be wrong. You can also say epistemically I'm wrong. However, all I'm saying is this, due to our current knowledge on how a logical motor scope functions, there might be a contradiction. However, currently, you have yet to demonstrate that there is a lack of contradiction. All you've done is say that it is identical with itself, etc., etc. I'm telling you, that is my and how we achieve something being possible in my mind. Is that the same method I would use in the argument about? No, and I never claimed it was the same method. I'm just telling you my own methodology. I'm not saying you should accept that, and I'm not saying it's something that should be used as a system to codify whether or not something is possible within this debate. So please track. I have said this twice now. How many times do I have to count out how many fucking times I repeat a sentence, my nigga? It's simple.
I slapped my butt on your face,
Ironic. Shut the fuck up.
pussy.
So I'm gonna ask you again: is there any reason why we should accept that it isn't contradictory, or do you want to end the conversation off there because it's going circular? Cynthia, do you hear him, or is he just not talking? Hello, is anybody talking? Hey, Ice.
What?
Yeah, do you hear him?
No.
Oh, it's him, bro. It's him.
The topic isn't nominalism, by the way. I don't know why y'all keep saying that. The topic is whether or not there should be a distinction between thoughts and concepts. I'm about to go eat, bro.
Hop off his dick if Fenno's not gonna.
Hey, tell me when this